Hey everybody, it's Kyle from Young Legend Street Hockey. This is our fourth podcast over the quarantine, and I'm getting to like it more and more. And today I have a very special guest, someone that I got a chance to meet back in 2018 as we both share the same sort of career path. And this guy is exceptional in so many different ways that I'm really excited to hear his story and for you guys to hear his story. So today I'm joined by Jason Pratt, or I call him Jay, so you're going to hear me say it all day. Jay is pretty much a basketball legend in Gloucester, and his story is by far very, very unique. And he's going to share our story with him. But just to give you a little background on Jay, Jay was a graduate of GHS in 2000. Mm-hmm. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2015. So, Jay, you're my first Hall of Famer, which is cool. From Gloucester High School, he went on to Cushing Academy for a post-grad. Then he went on to St. Joseph's College or University.
Yep, St. Joseph's College.
St. Joseph's. And then he finished up his career at Fitchburg State, which many in the ball hockey community know Fitchburg is a very popular place for street hockey. A couple other fun facts about Jay as far as his career. Until recently, he's been, held a lot of records. Actually, him and his brother that he'll talk about. But he was at one point the second time all-time leading scorer. Is that right?
Yep, second all-time leading scorer.
Now maybe third or fourth.
I think at this point fourth.
That's okay. Still impressive. Second all-time three-pointer.
Yep.
You led as a captain at Gloucester High School. Led at Cushing as a captain and won MVPs at both Gloucester. I got to ask you, did John split co-MVP with you?
Yeah, so most of what I accomplished is with John. So co-MVPs. There were times where he would win MVP and I would win offensive player. John more of a floor general point guard. He'd be leading us and getting me the ball. So yeah, I mean, we were either co-MVPs or he was the MVP. I was the offensive player.
See, it goes in tandem with a twin brother. So, and just as everybody should know, I'm a big fan of the Pratts. I've got a chance to sit down with both Jay and his father, John, both excellent people. And I met John Pratt, Jay's twin, at the Gloucester Fishermen Athletics Association when they gave us some money for the rink. So I'm a big fan of your family. On top of that, in that fast forward from the basketball career, Jay has now co-founded Life Solutions Group, which is in the financial service industry. So if you ever need an advisor, we're both in the same field, but I know locally he's awesome. They do great work.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. And he, co-founded with his dad. The company is thriving. Over 1,000 clients already over the past, I would say 8 or 9 years now, Joe?
Yeah, 9 years. We're coming up on 10 years, which is amazing.
Which is really impressive in an industry that is very competitive and challenging. You really need to have grit. Last but not least, I could go on and on about his resume, but I will stop. He's a husband and father of 4 girls, and that's another thing that we share. He has 4, I have 3 girls, so I guess we can only produce girls, Jay. But
that's right.
Girls are the best. And lastly, I thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
I'm really excited, Carl. I'm excited to share my story with you. You're a great guy. I love what you do for our community. And, it's my pleasure. It really is to jump on and spend some time with you. And it's also, through this pandemic, it's nice to interact with some different people from my daily routine,
Absolutely. It's very nice to have, other than talking to nervous clients all day. So, so we want to get really right into you and your story growing up in Gloucester. And that was like one of the things that I've talked about with Jay offline is that growing up, my family was big into hockey, obviously, run a street hockey program, played hockey all my life. But my grandfather was a huge sports advocate. That's not even the right word. He just loved sports. And growing up, we always followed the Gloucester High School hockey team. I went to the Garden when they won in '93 for the first time, and that was a lot of fun for me growing up as a kid. But because my grandfather loved all sports, he loved basketball too. And I always had to hear about these twin brothers at Gloucester High School. I didn't know who they were. All I knew is that they were really tall and they were really good. And somehow we were somehow connected through family, some sort of distant cousins, and that I needed to go down and watch them with him. Although, Jay, we never got down to go and see you.
It's okay.
Being in the Hall of Fame, you and your brother, growing up, what sports did you play? And what sort of led it to be basketball?
Yeah, so growing up, John and I played baseball, basketball, football. I would say that those three sports consumed all our time. We were probably equally as good in all three sports. As we got older, where basketball kind of took a front seat, we had an opportunity. In 8th grade, we started to realize that Bill Cahill, the head coach at Gloucester High School, recognized us, saw the talent that we had, and there was an opportunity for us to make varsity as a freshman, which, like most sports, that's not common, to step in as a 9th grader and not only make a varsity team, but have a chance to contribute. So at that point, we started to really focus more on basketball. Now, at that point in 8th grade, I would say I was slightly better at football. I was a quarterback, had a ton of success with the West Gloucester Chargers, and I love football. But the opportunity that John and I had in basketball really kind of took over, because I can only speak for myself, but I always wanted to leave an impact in the city of Gloucester with my athletic accomplishments. So growing up in Gloucester, it's rich in athletic history. Tons and tons of athletes have come out of here that you grow up and you hear about them, and you almost idolize them as a kid. And I always wanted to be one of those athletes that left my mark, and people remembered for having a lot of success, right? So basketball was an opportunity for us to do that. And looking back now, it was an awesome decision, because we had a lot to talk about as far as accomplishments,
Absolutely. You had mentioned this earlier, where you and your brother, and you have another brother.
Yeah, we have so there's John, my twin brother, and then we have Derek, who is 9 years younger than us.
Oh, okay. So he's makes sense. With that, when you guys were growing up together, where did that sort of competition and that mindset of being ultra competitive come from?
So this is an easy one to answer. I mean, one, it starts with my father, because if you know my father, he's an intense guy, super, super competitive. So we have that embedded in our DNA. But then if you picture two twins, equal match, right? So you're basically forced to play against your exact equal in everything. You're playing one-on-one. If we're playing any type of game, you're playing against the person that is just as big, just as strong, just as fast, and it's all day, every day. So John and I would have drop-down fights in the middle of one-on-ones, and I mean, so from age 5 when we started playing basketball, I would say, there's no looking back from there, and I do attribute a lot of it to the fact that I was forced to compete against my exact equal my whole life.
That's really interesting. So how did your mom and dad, did they have a huge part in fostering this competitiveness and keeping you guys close as a unit though?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize, my mom had a big part in teaching John and I to play catch and teaching us to do certain things, because to give some perspective, my parents were 18 and 17 years old when they had John and I. And my father, after graduating from Gloucester High, went to Worcester Academy to play football. And then from there, he went to the University of Maine to play football. And he had a wife and 2 kids at that point in time. So John and I spent the majority of our early years with our mom. And, she'll remind us, she taught us to play catch, right? She had us in the yard doing certain things. So my dad was a student, he was an athlete, and he was working, and we were home with my mom. So she played a big part in that in the early years, and she was always super supportive. And as we got to about 9 or 10, my father's career was at a point where he could carve off time to coach us. And he coached us in football and basketball. And the messaging was always, whether it was direct or indirect, give 110%, and, you want to win, right? You want to do everything you can to win. And that's always been our focus.
Interesting. Can I touch on my opinion on that? I think that I had a sports psychologist on that I talked to last week, and we talked about emotional maturity. And one of the things that you mentioned, Jay, about being a freshman, making a varsity team, for me, I was way underweight, very small for my size, and I had to fight with bigger players. But that also made me a better player in the long run.
Yeah.
But from an emotional standpoint, I don't know if I was ready to play varsity hockey as an 8th or 9th grader like I did.
Yeah.
And, when I think of your dad and your mom, and I think of having, we both have girls and having kids, I can't imagine myself having a child at that age. And to see how successful both your parents are and how you guys turned out, it's just an amazing story, because there's a lot of people that don't have that story, that real strong.
Yeah. I mean, my family, we've been truly blessed. I mean, you see teenage parents get married and fast forward still together happily, right? That's not common. And to have 3 sons where we are at in our life, it's amazing. And I give a lot of credit to my upbringing with family being a focus, and, just having the importance put on family first, no matter what else is going on. My grandfather, my mom's father, would always say, if you have family and love, you're rich, right? And that's true. His whole focus was, he'd look around at all of us and he would just sit back and smile and laugh and, just say how lucky we all are and how rich we are because we have family. And, we grew up in a very loving environment, and, I am truly lucky to have parents that put us first and still do. I'm pushing 40 now, and it's still, I tell my mom, it's okay. We're good. You don't need to, I have my own kids now,
Yeah.
But it's funny. You touched on one thing about the not being ready as a freshman, right? So I still remember some games as a freshman, and one stands out in Saugus. Now, mind you, I'm 14 years old, and you're playing in front of hostile crowds, high school kids, rowdy, and for whatever reason, the student section decided to pick on me that game. And, whether I was on the bench, they'd chant, "We want 14, we want 14." I'd get in the game, hit a shot, they'd cheer sarcastically. Now, picture being my mom or father at that point, their 14-year-old son. This is kind of the first time they've witnessed what was to come over the next 4 years. And for me, I still remember it clear as day, because I've never experienced anything like that before. And it took a lot of thick skin and I guess a lot of internal confidence in yourself to just, stay the course.
Can you talk a little bit about that internal confidence? Because, when I've got a chance to sit down with both you and your dad, you guys demonstrate a lot of confidence in yourselves. Where do you guys think that comes from?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it comes within, just feeling comfortable with who you are as a person, and, feeling comfortable in what you're doing and in what preparation, you did to get to a certain point. So like for sports, the confidence there is just knowing that I put in the time, I put in the work, and that's all I can do to be prepared for the game. And when the game starts, that's why I put in the work. From just like a in general life perspective, I think my parents raised all 3 of us to be confident kids and be comfortable in our own skin and who we are and be happy with that. So I've always just kind of lived my life in a way that I'm comfortable with who I am and what's important to me. It doesn't matter what somebody else thinks or what somebody else is doing. I've always been super comfortable staying in my lane and just being focused on what was important to me.
That's a great answer. I spent some time reading on. I actually have a minor in psychology, so psychology has always been a fascinating subject to me. But one of the things that I was reading on was something called locus of control, where you believe that success is based on, if you're internal, you believe success is about what you do, whereas external people tend to think that it's about fate, it's about luck, and it's about your circumstance. Whereas I'm more of, you take success into your own hands.
Yep.
You're responsible for your life. And that was one thing when I got a chance to sit down with your dad, I asked him that same question. Where do you get your confidence from? And
Right.
I'm because it amazes me till this day. I may have told you this already, but to have twins, not just some parents, teenage parents have twins, that's double the fun, double the money. That's just an incredible, and a lot of credit, like you said, goes to your mom too. That's a huge part of it. But
and it's interesting, Carl, because I always fall back, especially professionally now, on psychology being a huge piece to everything, right? Everything we do. If I could do it over again, I'd probably take more psych courses in college. I took a couple, but I truly believe that the psychology of understanding the person that you're talking to, or the audience of who you're delivering a message to, or just in general, the people you come across day to day, to try to understand the psychology of what makes them tick is so crucial in having a strong relationship.
Absolutely. That's a great point. We recently went through a training seminar that was all about the two sides of your brain, and, making sure that you're talking to a person, you're giving them analogies so that they understand what you're talking about. And even with my daughters, Jay, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to speak to you as opposed to telling you, and how do I correct your mistakes without making you feel like mistakes are bad? I want you to be okay with mistakes and be comfortable with that. So I'm still learning quite a bit. And I'm also like, man, hopefully I don't screw this up.
No, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. All right. So when you were growing up, you mentioned this 8th grade sort of transition. Coach Cahill, I actually went to school with his son, Bryant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we were good friends in elementary school. And before that, though, did you have a career ambition like, I'm going to play in the NBA, I'm going to be in the NFL? Yeah. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so sports have always been everything to me and my brothers. So growing up, the dream for me was always to be a pro football player, be a pro basketball player. And as you get older, it was still for me in basketball, it was play professionally overseas. And I never really looked past being a pro athlete until, college or what have you. But yeah, John and I would be in the yard all day. If the sun was out, we were outside. He was one team, I was another team, and it didn't matter the sport. It was just sports consumed us on a daily basis. And yeah, that was the dream, be a pro athlete of some sort.
Yeah. And did mom and dad sort of, encourage that, or were they sort of like have a backup plan too?
No, I think that they always encouraged us to dream big and aim for the stars and just work hard. The lesson I can give anybody is nothing happens without hard work. And as hard as you think you're working that day, I can guarantee you somebody's out working you somewhere.
It's nice to say that. Many times with our Young Legends groups, I've said that, or even to my stepsons, I'll throw that in there. I'm like, if you think you're working harder, there's someone else that's up earlier, maybe working longer. And yeah. I'm not a huge basketball guy, but I do follow, like the Kobe Bryant this year. 2020 has been a tough year for a lot of people, but one of the stories that I love about Kobe is there was, and you probably ever heard the story, there was a guy in the gym that Kobe was always the last one in the gym, doing something, or first one in, last one out type of mindset. But there was this guy that was in the gym, and Kobe was like, I can't leave until this guy leaves. And the guy was just kept going and going. And finally the guy left, and Kobe's like, now I get to go home. But that was
Right.
the mindset of like someone who's ultra successful as well. And, unfortunately, tragically was gone. But I think there's a lot of truth in what you said.
Well, I think there's a common trend, right, with all the greats, Jordan, Kobe, Brady, doesn't matter, you name it. They have a sickness, right? And their sickness is being ultra next level competitive to a point where it borderlines on like probably being a little bit of a disorder, And I'm watching the Last Dance right now, the ESPN documentary on the Bulls. And when I was growing up, MJ was everything to me. That Bulls team was my favorite team. As you know, growing up, the local teams weren't really as good as how they've been the last 20 years. So, I always had alternate teams in basketball, baseball, and in football because our teams stunk and I wanted to root for I always rooted for our team, but I had a secondary team. And Jordan is just on a different level of competitiveness. Like when they won their first championship, one of the guys on the team said, "We've never seen that side of Michael. All we've seen is agitated, frustrated, competitive, angry," right? So all of a sudden here he is hugging the trophy, crying, and he's all sentimental. And they're like, whoa, like we've never seen this before. But that's what made him the greatest of all time.
And I mean, and even, I don't think with your resume, Jay, I mean, I forgot to mention it was 77 points with 24 3-pointers in a summer league, just to prove to everybody you still got it. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, even that type of thing, to be able to accomplish that, even that if it's a summer league or whatever, it's still an accomplishment. And it takes a lot of work beforehand, even to be able to do something like that, and
yeah. And as you get older, I think there's muscle memory in some of the things that you do. And a lot of it, I joke around about shooting. It's like riding a bike, but you still need to have that confidence in your craft and what you're doing at that time. And some of the hardest points in my career, whether it was from injury or whatever it may be, being in a rut for whatever reason, the biggest dynamic was the lack of confidence at that moment in time that I had in my abilities or my circumstance that led to below average results. And, it's just true in all aspects of life. If you're not confident in what you're doing, you're not setting yourself up for the type of success that you could achieve if you were confident in what you were doing, if you had that belief.
Yeah, that belief in self. Absolutely. And I kind of sort of want to talk a little bit more about what you just said in a way, is that through the years of running Young Legends, I've met a lot of different athletes, from guys that have, come to the program. They've played in the Super 8 at St. John's Prep. Mm-hmm. They've won the Super 8, which my brother and I came close, but didn't. I think the closest I ever got was the semifinal game against BC High. And, I'm very proud of the players that have come through. The one thing is that I learned this last week from talking to someone, that I don't know what our players' goals truly are. I don't know if they want to play college hockey. I don't know if high school hockey is where they want to end up and finish. And for someone like you and me, we had aspirations to go play college, go play pro. I mean, that was sort of in our childhood. And you took a big step from leaving Gloucester and going to Cushing Academy. What was that transition like, both academically and athletically?
Yeah, so going into our senior year, the summer going into our senior year at Gloucester High School, John and I both had a handful of small D1 looks. I remember Coach Cahill coming over, talking to us about some of the phone calls he's received, and we were excited because that's always been the goal, right? D1. I mean, any athlete, that's what you strive for. But over the course of that season, John and I didn't put ourselves in a position academically that, we were super attractive to certain schools. So it was suggested that we do a postgraduate year. Yeah. So we looked at some of the schools in the area, which there's so many amazing schools, as you know, being a hockey guy or basketball. New England Prep is it's the best in the country. So we chose Cushing, and it was, so picture you got your close group of friends. They're going off to college or not. They're staying home and working full time. John and I are going off to a boarding school, a preparatory school with mandatory study hours, mandatory lights out, no TV, no girls in your room. Like just every aspect of your life is now different, right? So, but it was amazing. So I became essentially an RA at Cushing. It was called a proctor. I did that because I wanted to have John and I the ability to have a TV, a PlayStation, a refrigerator, right? So I sacrificed for us. But it was, you know what, to be honest, Carl, it was a structure we both needed. And to this day, I love Cushing Academy. It's a really tight-knit community. The teachers really care. I still have relationships with classmates. I still have relationships with teachers and coaches. It was absolutely a tough transition for us, knowing that if we wanted to leave, we had to get permission and signed out while my friends are off at whatever, UMass, having the time of their life. We were focused on bettering our academics and also continuing to prove athletically as well. So it was amazing. And, the rest of what happened that year, we can get into or not. That's when I sustained my first injury that really set me back, which, was a ton of adversity. But looking back, Cushing is and will be one of the best decisions we both made.
I recently went by Cushing.
Really?
Yeah, I had a meeting with Milik, which is one of the equipment providers of street hockey equipment. Yep. And they have a major tournament out there in the summer. And this was before the pandemic happened. So I had a nice meeting with those guys. And I went right by Cushing Academy on my way there. And I'm like, man, this brings back memories because, as you know, Cushing hockey was phenomenal when I played. I mean, just to give people a little perspective, when I played at Kimball Union, Cushing Academy my senior year, that's when Ray Bork's son Chris Bork was playing there. Yep. We had our battles and we beat them once, which was really that made me feel great. We were a 500 club during my whole senior year, but I mean that playing in that level is something that I think a lot of us, I'm grateful to been able to play at that level because you see so many guys that come through, they go to the NHL and
absolutely. And, when you grow up in a community like Gloucester or the North Shore, you might not even know that the prep ranks exist, right? So when John and I got there, I had no idea to what level we were going to be playing against. Guys that made it to the NBA. Most teams had guys that 2 or 3 guys that were going big time D1 on every team we faced. So it was definitely a different animal. And even the hockey, I grew up in Gloucester. Gloucester High had great hockey teams, and you go to Cushing, and they're sending off 7, 8 a year to the biggest D1 schools in the country. It was definitely eye-opening, but it was amazing.
Great school. That they have one of the best rinks in the building. So you did mention the injury. I did want to go on to that a little bit. So you go to St. Joe's.
Yep.
What was that transition like? And if you want to get into the injury, by all means.
Yeah. So for me, we went to Cushing PG year to get our grades up, but also be under a spotlight and continue to get recognized by different schools that we were interested in. So there was a lot riding on that 2001 year at Cushing. In our first scrimmage, I tore every ligament in my ankle. I went up for a jump shot. When I landed, my foot almost I didn't land on anyone's foot. It just caved in on me, and all of the ligaments on the outside tore. So I'm here to play basketball and get an education, but I'm here to play basketball. So now I don't know how long I'm going to be out. I don't know what the recovery is going to look like. I don't know what it's going to be like when I get back. Long story short, I rushed back. I had a good year. I think I won offensive MVP for Cushing. I led the team in scoring. But I played that entire season, that entire PG year, injured. My right ankle was just toasted. So for whatever reason, we don't need to go through the history of the schools we were talking to and why. We ended up deciding to go together and go to St. Joe's in Maine. Beautiful school right on Sebago Lake. But I was still injured, still didn't feel right. I actually redshirted that year. John didn't. John played. John had a pretty good freshman year. But then I transferred to Fitchburg solely for the coach that was there. He was every step of the way, junior year, senior year, prep school year. Jack Scott was everywhere. He really loved myself and John, and he didn't care what colleges were next to him, D1, D2. He was a D3 state school, and he was everywhere. So when I decided I wanted to leave St. Joe's, he was my one and only call. And I said, Jack, I'm looking to leave. I'm looking to transfer, and I want to play for you. Because at that point, I was 20 years old, right? So I graduate in 2000, go to Cushing in 01, go to St. Joe's in 02, and I really haven't played any college ball yet. So I'm like, I want to go play for a guy that I know likes my style, has my best interests at heart. And then the first scrimmage of my first year at Fitchburg, I did the same exact thing to my other ankle. Straight up, straight down, tore the ligaments in my left foot, right? So I'm like, man, I can't catch a break. So that's where you start getting head trash. You start feeling sorry for yourself. And, we can dive deeper into that if you want, but the long and short of it is I sustained 2 ankle injuries that basically set me back a ton, not only physically, but mentally.
That's a tough break. That's a tough break. Yeah. I mean, from putting your story together, up until this point, you've had a lot of success. There hasn't been a lot of major adversity.
No injuries.
No, injury adversity anyway. But how did you overcome that, like you said, that trash inside the mind where you start to feel sorry for yourself? I think this is where the resilience comes in, which is a huge topic. How did you overcome some of that mindset?
Yeah, I think, just being competitive, you don't want to give in. You don't want to give up. I would say throughout my basketball career at Fitchburg, it was up and down. It's one of the things I look back on and just, it kills me because I was at the same time watching guys on TV that I competed against at the same level. And I'm at Fitchburg frustrated, not living up to any type of, potential that I had for myself. Also at the same time, the coach that I went to Fitchburg to play for stepped down.
Wow.
In comes a new coach, right? So I'm just like, this is unbelievable. So I would say, the resiliency didn't even really take its course until after the fact. I've gone back and used that experience post-college and not so much in that moment, but understanding and reflecting on how that affected me in the moment in college and how I use it now to remember how to overcome that adversity. Because look, no one's going to feel sorry for you, right? So injuries happen, new coaches happen, life happens. Okay. But it's how you respond to the things that come your way that kind of define who you are. And I've used that every step of the way moving forward. And I've always been able to articulate and understand my story, why I am who I am, and what's made me who I am today.
That's probably the biggest, most powerful statement in what you just said, I think, out of everything that you've accomplished so far. And like you said, you're almost 40, but a long way to go with success ahead. Is how do we end up overcoming the challenges that we're faced? And for years growing up as a youth athlete, as a player, I started to get a lot of attention maybe in middle school, where teachers started to notice how many goals I was scoring, things like that. And then I jumped ship and went to the prep school league, and I was just I wasn't the top dog anymore. I had to start from scratch and build up. But I think what's important in those lessons that we learn is growth only comes through, failure and adversity. We never know who we are until we're actually challenged.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think we all want some comfort in our lives, but to really grow, you had to go through those injuries to get to where you are today.
Yeah. And I look at everything like it happens for a reason. I truly believe everything that's happened in my life, in my career, has led me to where I am today. Even, being married to my amazing wife and having my 4 kids. I mean, let's say everything went perfect. I never got injured. I went to, a big time school, played overseas. Who knows where that would have led me, opposed to where I am today, which I couldn't be happier with the life I live today. So yeah, sometimes it still bugs me to look back and say, man, I could I could and should have did way better. But again, here I am today, and I couldn't be happy.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I don't know if you'll agree with this. Is that I always felt like this is how crazy hockey has been for a player. Is that if you're not being recruited by the time you're a sophomore, then you pretty much need to start looking at Division III schools or D2 schools. And I'm like, my dad and I've had this conversation many times now. Is that I mean, when I was, 16, 17 years old, I looked probably like I was 12 body size. I was like I said, I'm not a big guy in person.
Right.
And, I weighed less than, so many kids. I was so thin. But I put so much pressure on myself to perform and to overcome those barriers. And the thing is though, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, or like you were in college, it's challenging sometimes to say, I'm this young. Maybe if I took a step back and let myself develop a little bit more, I could come back and do it again. Because you had mentioned earlier, playing overseas. Did that ever, sort of come back?
No, I think I had a couple years after college where I had enough. I just had enough. I still played summer league, but no, I didn't have any of those aspirations. And then as I started to kind of get the love back, feel better, there were points in time where I'm like, I wonder if I could still do it, or, what if, but no, I mean, at a certain point you have to realize it's not in the cards, and just be comfortable with that. Right. I mean, just be okay with where things ended up.
Yeah. I appreciate that story so much. Like I said, there's a lot of resiliency there in your story, Jay. So this next part, basketball's over. You're now working, maybe following in dad's footsteps a little bit. What was it like going from, basketball ending to, I got to find a job. I got to have a career choice. How does that sort of fit into this whole thing?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate. I actually, my first real job I consider out of college, it couldn't have been with a better group of people. It was with a company by the name of Treeline Inc. They're an executive search firm focused in sales recruitment. So, helping sales professionals find jobs. And the only reason I got that job, and they've said this to me, was because they were impressed with my ability to articulate my story and who I am and what motivates me. So I spent 2 years there, and had some success there. It was it's a tough business. It's a tough grind, and anybody that's competitive though, sales is really the industry you want to be in. So I leveraged that experience to one of our clients at the time, which was Northwestern Mutual. And I had, I knew I wanted to get into financial services at some point. My father's been in the industry for decades at this point, and I had the opportunity to run recruitment for their, at the time, Wakefield office, which turned to Woburn. And I was fired up to do that. It was my foot in the door into financial services. And I spent a couple years there and leveraged that into running all of New England for recruitment for Prudential. So an office in Wakefield, an office in Marlborough, Portsmouth, and South Portland. So about a year into being there is when my father and I decided to team up. And, we could spend 2 hours talking about his career, but the long and short of it is we teamed up in 2011, January of 2011. And we really haven't looked back. And, again, we could do a whole podcast on the 10 years that we've done with LSG, because it's been, as you can imagine, tons of ups, tons of downs, tons of risk and reward, and, upset stomachs, and because nothing's guaranteed when you're running your own independent firm,
100%. I mean, I admire you guys, because when I came to chat with you guys, one of the things that I was wondering is, that's the ultimate question that I have for myself and for my wife is, when do you go independent? When do you feel comfortable enough to, even for someone like me, join LSG at some point?
Right.
You know what I mean? At what point financially are you ready to take that grind?
And Carl, that's such a tough call, because, the reality is it's never going to be the right time, because it's always going to be such a risk. Right. And we talked, we were in the office, a ways back. And obviously, we'd love to entertain that thought for you, but at the same time, we always care about the person first, right? So it's like you get all these kids. At what point do you say, I'm going to roll the dice here and bet on myself, but also at the same time, not have any guarantees where this is going to go? And you want to talk about confidence? You'll need more confidence than you've ever had in your life to take that jump. But I believe if it's the right decision, you'll never regret it, right? So,
absolutely. And again, Jay, this all comes back to the sort of the big theme of you, your dad, your brothers, your mom, where this whole idea that I can accomplish anything I want to, because starting a company is, like you said, there's the ups, the downs. How do you manage all of those emotions in one place?
That's a great question. So first, I give all the credit in the world to my father. He basically bankrolled LSG. He invested his entire life savings into taking a chance on not just himself, but me as well. And I think it just takes patience, but at the same time, you have to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and you have to be willing to deal with the ups and downs. And there are a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And there are times where it would be easier just to walk away and say, you know what, let's just go latch on to another company that's going to pay our bills and pay us salaries and do all this stuff. But at the same time, we'd now be held captive, and we'd be basically an employee reporting to them. And what we're trying to build is too special and too important for us to ever give up. So we look at what we're trying to accomplish, and it's way bigger than us. We're talking generational, right? So he wants to help set me up. I want to set my girls up, and we want to impact the lives of people in our community for decades, right? So we can't give up, but I wish I had a direct answer for you, because you get that pit in your stomach, and you know that this is a brutal time, but you just have to you have to battle through. Like right now, this isn't a great time for you or for me in our business, right? But I always believe in positive thoughts equal positive outcomes, right? So I'm telling myself this summer is going to be amazing for all of us. So I just always stay the course and continue to think positively and really just kind of keep that momentum going here.
And that positivity was another reason why I reached out to you to do this, because I know you're an extremely positive guy, both you and your dad. I don't think sometimes people realize, again, I'm going to reiterate this point, how challenging it can be to take a risk on yourself, to start to believe, both you and your dad believing in each other, that we can start this company. Like I said, over 10 years, Jay, having 1,000 clients, I mean, that's a pretty big portfolio. I don't think people realize we're, a small firm trying to grow. And I know you guys are growing. For the youth athletes, the high school, the college guys that watch this, you are president of a company. As a leader, what do you look for in people in general? What sort of characteristics do you find that people can use to be successful?
Sure. It's simple for me. I mean, first I look for just a passion to be great, right? So internally, what motivates this person? Does this person have that fire in the belly? Are they motivated? Are they self-starters? Are they coachable? Coachable is huge. So I always look for ex-athletes for the obvious reason. If you're an athlete, you understand the discipline, being part of a team, taking criticism and coaching, not giving up in the middle of a game because it didn't go your way. There's so many things that happen as an athlete that are transferable into especially our business, but any business really in life in general. So I'm looking for that hungry, dedicated person that has high character, high integrity, the type of person that if I'm not in the room, they're going to work just as hard as if I was staring at them, right? So that's ultimately who you're looking for, is the person that's going to work just as hard when no one's watching as they would if their superior or their manager or their boss were in the room next to them. So for like our business, I always look for somebody that's just overly motivated and hungry, somebody that's never going to be satisfied. because there are going to be points in time where, things are going good for you and you might take your foot off the gas. And that's always a mistake.
100%.
And we've been there. You've had good quarters, good months where you're like, nice, things are going great. That can change rapidly.
Totally.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you is, you kind of mentioned it, is for yourself, what drives your success? Like, what makes you get up in the morning and be like, I'm going to go out there. We're in a tough situation, like you had mentioned, but what drives you?
I bet it's similar to your answer on this one, where we are today in our lives, but my motivation is my kids. So in my office, you've been there. I have pictures of my kids, my wife, right to the right of my desk. So every time, the day might not be going in a way that I wanted to, or if I don't want to pick up the phone, or if I don't want to send a message, because I don't feel like dealing with the no's, or, whatever it may be, I take a look here and I look at my kids, and that's my motivation every single day, to give them the quality of life they deserve, and the type of life that I want them to have.
Absolutely. And has motivation changed over the years for you? Have you stayed motivated the entire time?
I've always been motivated, but yeah, it's changed drastically. So like, what was important to me in my mid-20s isn't even on the radar of what's important to me right now. Right. So in your mid-20s, you're starting to work, you're having some success, you have some money in your pocket, and you might want to buy a car, or you might want to go on trips, or whatever it may be. Now I just want to do things for my family, and take them on trips, or, provide them a good education, or, just have them do whatever they want to do. And for me, that's my focus every day. But yeah, I've always been motivated, but the reasoning behind it has drastically changed over the last 9 years.
I think that I hope that during times like this, one of the things we've chatted a lot about in our team meetings has been, routines.
Mm-hmm.
When you get out of bed, working from home, it's like, hey, I can go turn on the TV and I can watch a movie if I wanted to.
Right.
Which probably some people do. For me, it's getting up every day and grinding it out, working on tasks that I need to get caught up on, things like that. But do you have a routine that you follow on a daily basis? And did you have routines when you played basketball too?
Yeah, I think structure is important. I think it goes hand in hand with success. I do. I work out every morning. I get my workout in every morning, and then I get the girls breakfast, and then, I get ready and go about my day. And I'm trying to still keep that consistent now with working from home. And I try to have that message be sent to our team too. You got to stay disciplined. You got to stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish today, and not let today get away from you. Right. So I think I've always been a structured person, very organized, to I would say a degree that it aggravates my wife. And I get it. I could be pretty annoying when it comes to some of my quirks. Right. But no, I think structure and repetition is important in business, because I could easily, I could easily sit down and watch TV with my kids and just waste an entire day, but that's not helping me or them if I allow that to happen. So, and one of the things that I think is super important during a pandemic, or during a time where we're sitting home and we're not actually with our team and interacting with them face to face, is just a positive mental attitude, and whatever's going to get you there is what you need to do. So if you need to listen to a Gary Vaynerchuk, or if you need to jump on and just listen to motivational people, or whatever is going to motivate you and get you in the right state of mind, is what you need to do to start every day. Because otherwise you get wrapped up watching the news, you get wrapped up on your feed on Facebook, and the hysteria and panic. And I mean, it's not conducive to any type of thing that's going to relate in positive outcomes.
In during this time, with that, what you just said, staying positive, is there any other sort of advice that you could give someone that may be struggling with turning on the TV and being fearful of what's going on, Any words?
Yeah, I would say don't allow yourself to curl up in a ball and just worry alone. Reach out, pick up the phone, call people. We have access to internet right now, so you can actually pick and choose the messaging you want. My whole focus for every single person during this pandemic, and we're friends on Facebook, so you see I started sharing movie clips and whatever I could do to maybe motivate people to think positively, whether it's motivation or comedy. There's nothing good that's going to come from panic and hysteria, right? So reach out to people that are going to talk you off the ledge, so to speak, or spend time listening to people that have really good perspective on a positive mental attitude.
Absolutely. I remember, I remember, as we are friends on Facebook, you were down in, I believe, in Jamaica when
It was
starting to take off, right?
Oh, it hit the fan when we were in Jamaica. Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, at the time, I was still in the office, going into work every day,
Yep.
because, my mindset was that I'm going to be in the office to show people that I'm here as a leader. If a client is panicking because the market is tanking, come chat, come talk with me. I really appreciate it. And but there was so much fear. And you could feel the intensity in this with some of my colleagues. And I just remember, just putting my head down and trying to acknowledge that it was there, because I couldn't get away from it. Acknowledge it, that was there, and just focus on what I could control. That was that and that's what I do today too, is I just try to focus on what I can control. But
yeah, and I was actually just going to say that you hit the nail on the head there. You can only focus on what you can control. Outside of that, yeah, it's important to be informed. It's important to have an understanding of like what's going on in the world, but focus on what you can control within your inner circle. And that's really all you can do to have an impact directly on yourself.
Absolutely. And that is so crucial. And I think people that are successful are able to, put their blinders on and focus. But I do compliment you, Jay, because, you continue to send out the positive vibes. And I remember when you got back from Jamaica, one of your first posts was "Stay positive, people. No negative." Something along. I'm paraphrasing.
Positive vibes only, right?
Yeah, which I think is what we need in the world. I think leaders know that. Leaders demonstrate in times of incredible uncertainty, they rise to the top because they're able to keep what's going on up here.
Yeah, I think my idea of leadership is real simple. I think a leader has the ability to inspire people to be the best version of themselves, right? So inspire and motivate people to not only want to be better, but to push themselves to be the best version of themselves. And a leader is doing it with them, right? They're not just sitting down barking orders, but they're actually leading by example. So I try to maintain a positive attitude as much as I can. And obviously, with your kids, and I have my kids, and, it's not ideal right now, but it could always be worse. So it just, for me, it's better and healthier to think positively and push through that way.
Absolutely. What, it's been a challenge with the kids because everybody has their own needs and trying to reach that. With that said, sort of, I'm just curious to know, are the girls just as competitive as you are?
Not yet. Not yet. So I would say my oldest is super competitive, hates to lose. My twins are hilarious. They're just, kind-hearted kids. They're just silly all the time. So I think it'll get there. I think because I have such a close relationship with them, that's all they'll be kind of subjected to is ultra competitiveness. But right now they're just silly, funny, cute girls. So not yet.
Yeah. With that said, do you feel like they'll play basketball, or will they the broad spectrum of sports?
Yeah. So right now they're playing basketball, softball. They love gymnastics and dance. But yeah, so I've started to spend some time with them playing basketball, and it's amazing.
Hi, Daddy.
Oh, I have a guest. Hold on.
I love it. I'm surprised I haven't yet.
All right, you guys, hold on.
Hi, Daddy.